Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. I'd like to call the 2020 AIA business meeting, South Carolina business meeting to order. Mr. Secretary, Benjamin Ward, can you let us know if we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting today. This is a new format for us in this new world, so hopefully you'll have some patience with us as we work through it. Couple things today, just housekeeping wise. Please note, as an attendee of the meeting, you're automatically muted and you won't be able to show your video. We ask you to use the Q&A portion of Zoom to ask questions, we'll ask you to nominate from the floor there as well for the slate. We'll be voting on two items, the meeting minutes and the slate of officers. When it's time to vote, you'll see a poll pop up. Please participate in that poll and the results will be announced pretty promptly after that before we move on, as it's real time. Any questions or comments during the meeting should be placed in the Q&A tab. And please note that at this time, we're going to open up the floor for nominations to the slate of officers. We ask again that you place that in the Q&A box. And when you see the election slide pop up, that will be your cue that the floor will be closed for nominations. So I'm going to turn it over to our Secretary Treasurer, Ben Ward, to take us through the approval of minutes.
The 2019 minutes from the annual meeting were distributed on Friday, October 9th in an email. I've received no corrections back, so hearing none, is there a motion to approve last year's minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any objections?
All right, awesome. So moving on, oh, sorry. You'll see the poll pop up now, so please
There's
vote.
the poll.
Oh, there's the poll. Adrian, if you'll just let me know when that's wrapped up.
Minutes have been approved.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Ben, anything else from you on that front? Are you good?
We're good.
Awesome. All right. We'd like to start with some recognitions today and thanking our generous sponsors. The sponsor today for the business meeting is Georgia Carolina's PCI. And then our overall sponsors this year, thanks to McWaters, Milliken, Carolina Architectural Products, PacClad, Sika, and Woodworks. Again, thank you for your continued support. And we've had kind of an interesting year, so that's been very meaningful along the way, particularly this year. Quite a few folks here on the call today and not on the call today work on your behalf, the AIA South Carolina members. It's my honor today to introduce you to that team. First is our ExCom immediate past president, Dan Schaefer. Myself, I'm Meg Terry, your 2020 president. Jean Bell, who is your vice president and president-elect, and Benjamin Ward, who is Secretary Treasurer this year. Our upstate directors, we've got Brian Sanders from Spartanburg, Jonathan Garvin from Greenville, and Ben Udaweta from Greenville as well. Low country directors, Laura Middleton from Charleston, James Ogden in Hilton Head, and Danielle Delorme in Charleston. Our Midlands directors, Wendy Bergman, Robin Rogers, and Hunter McKenzie in Columbia. Of course, our staff, our wonderful staff who keeps us rolling from year to year, Adrian Monteer, Executive Director, and Tracy Waltz, Business and Events Director. Some of the local leadership we wanted to also focus on as well: AIA Charleston, Ashley Jennings; AIA Columbia, Clint Riddle; AIA Spartanburg, AIA Hilton Head, Evan Goodwin; AIA Spartanburg, Michael Tuning; AIA Greenville, Jamison Hupp; and AIA Grand Strand, Melissa Watness. Moving more to the regional level for the South Atlantic region, the SAR College of Fellows Regional Representative, Michael Watson, and then our SAR Strategic Council Representatives, Cheryl McAfee from Georgia and Walter Teague from North Carolina. Our SAR Strategic Council Representatives, our SAR Young Architect Regional Director, Emily Schickner, our SAR Regional Associate Director, Justin Patterson, and our AXP Licensing Advisor, Andrew Rogerson. Our two national representation, we've of course got Jane Frederick, who's here with us today, our 2020 AIA President, and Mark Levine, who is our 2020 through 2022 at-large Director on the National Board of Directors, and also our liaison for SAR from AIA National. So just thank you for all your service, and look forward to hearing more of everything from them today. So just a few remarks, as this year has been extremely interesting. Our board started out in November of last year at our annual retreat with a strategic plan update, and I don't think that any of us would have predicted what was to come. It has been an unprecedented year for many reasons, from the pandemic to the conversations of equity in our country and across the world. We've had to be agile and thoughtful about every decision we make for ourselves and our firms. I always think of the word safe when I look back on this year, and it seems that's been our ultimate goal. Keep your family safe, keep your employees safe, keep yourself safe. And it's been our board's goal since the onslaught of this year to make sure that our members have the tools possible to make good and safe decisions. And it seems to me that our profession obviously is quite the social group of people that likes to be together and celebrate together. But this year we've not been able to provide those opportunities. So we hope through things like Aspire, we fulfilled that mission to be a resource not only to be together in obviously a different way, but also our continuing education and bettering the profession. Like I mentioned, this year we revisited our strategic plan. We tweaked and added to the plan, but ultimately that plan will continue with a vision to drive positive change in South Carolina through the power of design and a mission to advocate for the architectural profession in South Carolina and to be a trusted, evolving resource for our members in service to our communities. We have and will continue to be focused on three key areas: advocacy, serving as the voice through our members by advocating for the profession; community, to inform the public around the important role of the architect in the communities we serve; and knowledge, to deliver exceptional knowledge and opportunities to our current and future members throughout all career stages. So we're going to share with you our efforts towards these goals through our committee reports from this year. But first, we'd like to take a minute to reflect on and pay tribute to three great men who passed away this year: John Bowman, AIA; Don Baker, AIA; and Charles Major, Jr., AIA. Today, we're lucky enough to have Douglas Rackley on the call with us, who was lucky enough to spend many years of the profession with Charlie, and I'd like to invite him now to read a resolution on behalf of Charles S. Major, Jr., AIA. Douglas?
Thank you, Meg, and I am honored today to read this resolution to honor my friend and my mentor, Charlie Major. Resolution. Whereas Charlie S. Major, Jr. was a member of the South Carolina chapter of the American Institute of Architects, and whereas Charlie departed this life on April 27th, 2020, and whereas Charlie was a 1955 graduate of Clemson College, now Clemson University, where he studied architecture, lettered as a track athlete, and was selected to serve as a member of the Clemson Senior Platoon. And whereas, as a member of the last military class to graduate from the school, Charlie spent 3 years in the United States Air Force flying bombers during the Cold War prior to beginning his career in architecture. Whereas, as a member of Freeman and Major Architects, established in 1942 by W.E. Freeman Jr., Charlie started his draftsmanship in 1959 and became a partner in 1966. Among Charlie's notable projects with the firm were the South Carolina Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities, several projects at Clemson University, including the upper decks of Clemson Memorial Stadium, the Brackett Hall renovation, the original soccer and baseball stadiums, and the shoebox dormitories. At Furman University, Johns Hall, the Duke Power Kiwi Toxaway Visitor Center, the Duke Power Regional Headquarters, now First Citizens Bank, the West End Market, the First Federal Building, known later as the BB&T Building, and now known as the Canvas Project, the Greenville Water System Headquarters, and the iconic Freeman and Major Architects Office Building, which spans the Rock Quarry Garden Stream downtown. Whereas, Charlie mentored a number of now practicing architects on the nuts and bolts of architecture and construction industries. Charlie knew how to detail buildings so design works and the roof doesn't leak. Whereas, Charlie was a member of the AIA and served as president of the Greenville Council of Architects. Charlie was also involved with the Clemson Architectural Foundation and was a longtime member of IBTE. Charlie was an emeritus member of the Rotary Club of Greenville, having joined in 1965, and was a 2-time Paul Harris recipient. Whereas, Charlie was a member of Christ Episcopal Church. Whereas, Charlie was known in the community as an avid runner, cyclist, and triathlete. While he thoroughly enjoyed the challenges of these athletic endeavors, what he especially loved was spending time with his friends and children who joined him in these adventures. He completed multiple marathons, twice finishing the New York Marathon. At age 83, Charlie and 3 fellow octogenarians completed their own cross-state tour, cycling from Greenville to Beaufort, South Carolina. Whereas, Charlie was a member of the Greenville Spinners Bicycle Club, a member and former president of the Greenville Track Club, and served for some years as the associate director of the Greenville News Downtown Run. Whereas, Charlie is survived by his wife of 59 years, Margaret Noon Peggy Major, a daughter, Eve Fleming, sons, Rip Major, Perry Major, and Edmund Major, their respective spouses, and 5 grandchildren, and a brother, Joseph Edmund Major. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South Carolina chapter of the American Institute of Architects, in meeting assembled, does express its deep sense of loss and regret in the untimely passing of our good friend, mentor, and colleague, Charles S. Charlie Major Jr. It is ordered that a copy of this resolution be given to Charlie's wife, Peggy Major, and his children, and that it be recorded and distributed in the minutes of this chapter. So recorded, South Carolina Chapter, American Institute of Architects, Meg Terry, AIA President, Benjamin Ward, AIA Secretary, Treasurer. Cheers to Charlie.
Thank you, Douglas. Again, it is with great sorrow that we say goodbye to these men, so please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll move on to committee reports. So first, I'd like to invite Benjamin Ward, our 2020 Secretary Treasurer, to give us the Treasurer's report.
Thank you, Meg. Slide there. We, with all that's been going on this year, the board kind of made a decision in early March when all this started to kind of put a freeze on our spending and kind of watch every dime we had. And I think through that effort, we've been able to maintain a solid financial footing. Here's the balances of our current accounts. In our reserve account, we have $61,100. In our operating account, we currently have $35,800. The ARCAPAC account has $2,275, and the foundation account has $366. The foundation account will be explained a little bit more in that update, as well as the ARCAPAC account. It is an election year, so that we have doled out quite a bit of money there with the election year. And the reserve and the operating account are kind of peaking at their low point right now as dues revenues are expected to start rolling in when the renewals go out beginning of the month. Some of our major revenues this year, dues as always counts for a significant portion, $271,000, programming, $54,000. Again, this was the budget for this year. The magazine, $26,000, document sales, $15,000, kind of miscellaneous expenses. The healthcare conference, $26,000. Our resource allocation from nationals, $29,000, and sponsorships, $11,000. So our total budget for the year was $434,000. Again, several of these events, such as the AIH conference and many of our sponsorships, were put on hold. Next slide there. In our expense budget for the year, magazine $6,300, overhead $260,900, board of director expenses at $16,000, our advocacy budget $54,000, the AIH conference $25,000, programming $31,000, document expenses $9,000, resource allocation, that's to the sections, $15,600, and Clemson support $4,000, which is the scholarship that we provide through them. So again, we've had a lot of these expenses this year. We've tried to watch the budget as we can, knowing that the revenue side's down, and that you see that reflected in our operating and reserve account balances being a little lower than normal right now.
Thanks, Ben. Turn over to Doug Quackenbush, who is our steering committee chair and foundation co-chair, to give us an update on the capital campaign.
Happy to do that. Good afternoon, everybody. So the next slide is a reminder of our campaign target of $1.1 million. Thanks to the hard work of the Capital Campaign Committee and several very generous donors, our final silent phase amount of $868,700 represents 79% of that total goal. That exceeded the target that our consultant, the Winkler Group, established for us for the silent phase, which is 75%. So at 79%, we felt really good about that. The pledges, the payments that we've received to date, a little over $400,000, that's tracking on target. I think we're actually very pleased at the response we've been getting. If there's something to emphasize, it is that we're short at this date of our target in the public phase. So to date, we've raised about $11,000. We've got another $219,000 to go. I suspect that COVID has impacted the performance of the public phase to a degree. Dan is going to give a report in a moment that kind of updates us on the progress of design and construction. I think we've got good news on the horizon there, which will also, I think, spark some additional interest in the public phase. And then we've got some other strategies sort of in the back pocket to make up that deficit. So certainly our initial goals have been met in terrific fashion, and we're very optimistic about filling the rest of that gap through the public phase. There have been some in-kind donations. The total of that, I'm told, is around 30,000 of our 868,000 silent phase contribution. We have other in-kind donations that are still being solicited through the design and contractor process, which is helping us to sort of upgrade from the base bid of that scope. So there's additional generosity on the part of our partners being achieved that way as well. So if you have any questions, I think you're given an opportunity to type those in. We'll try to address that when we get to the end. Thank you, Meg.
Thanks, Doug. Dan, you want to give us a AIA Center for Architecture update?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as Doug reported, we were thrilled with the capital campaign and our ability to raise, as you can see, above and beyond our budget for construction of the physical space for the new Center for Architecture. So what's happening right now is Thompson Turner Construction is working through a cost estimate based off the design documents that were done, and we are hopeful that we are going to come back with a construction cost that is in line with budget, but if not, we'll be working through a little bit of value engineering to get our budget to the 850,000 number. We have good confidence in that number. And then what we're going to be doing is there's been a lot of work by a lot of the folks that were serving on the campaign committee to do some additional fundraising for materials and services to further reduce that construction cost. And our goal here is really to have enough seed money to get the programming started for the center. So while 850 is the budget, we're optimistic we can reduce that further through more in-kind donations from a lot of our sponsor partners and allied friends of AIA South Carolina to help produce that further. So looking down at the schedule, so we're in that GMP process now. We're hopeful to be done with that towards the end of the month, at which point we'll be meeting again with our banker to secure our construction loan. There's also some repairs going on to the building through the HOA that we're hopeful will be done by first quarter of next year. We're also talking with them about potentially rolling some of that scope into our general contractor scope of work. And that would put us at a construction start date in March with hopefully a substantial completion in September, giving us enough time to plan a great holiday party towards the end of 2021. So that's the schedule for the renovations. I think the next slide is talking about the foundation, so I can touch on that as well. So we've rounded out the Board of Trustees. So Mary Beth and Doug have agreed to stay on after a lot of hard work on the capital campaign. They're going to be chair and co-chair of our architectural foundation. I'll be serving as secretary. George Schaefer is going to be our designee from Clemson, who will give us the connection to Clemson University. Ben Udaweda is a member from the upstate, and Jean Bell is an ex officio as our president-elect to keep that tie and connection to the mission of AIA South Carolina. So there's a constant dialogue between the foundation and AIA South Carolina. We do, however, want to work on our brand. So we want to differentiate the foundation from AIA South Carolina because our mission is really more about architecture and promoting architecture, where AIA South Carolina is about promoting architects. So you can see some new branding there for the foundation, as well as our tagline, engaging our communities. So looking at what we've been up to, we've really been focused on the brand and going through some of the bylaws, and are just starting to dive into some of our programming. Obviously, with the current conditions, a lot of these initiatives may be virtual next year as we start to launch these programs. A big component of it is getting our brand out there. And one of the initiatives we're looking at is our quarterly magazine for AIA South Carolina, taking one of those issues and making that a magazine focused on the South Carolina Architecture Foundation, talking about our community engagement and branding and getting that out across all regions of our state. We're also looking at some existing programs that are out there that are geared towards K-12 and student initiatives. One program in particular is one at the AI national level we think would be a good fit for the state level, which is the Build the Blocks program. And then the final initiative obviously will be the grand opening of the center, which is very exciting. So there'll be a lot of planning around that and how we can use that as an advocacy tool and really reach out to the community. So that's a brief update on what's been happening with the foundation. So as Doug mentioned, we'll have the Q&A window open. If you have further questions, we'd be happy to address them at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right, switching over to advocacy. We have our advocacy team. Our advocacy committee chair, Jonathan Garvin, as well as Hobart Trotter and Ted Riley with Riley Popeland Laney, who are lobbyists there in Columbia. So Jonathan, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Meg. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, as Meg had already said, 2020 has been very unique. It's hard to believe that in January, we were in the Alumni Center for the Design Construction Partnership Legislative Reception. And that's kind of our kickoff to engage in the process. And then, moving into some of our strategic goals first outlined was the strengthening of the advisory committee on food safety. As you see, there are members, Scott Powell, Mary Beth Branham, Doug Quackenbush, Steve Coe, and Paulette Myers, formulated to address, again, Meg's words of safety. That was a very big element, and again, highlighting the importance of architects in the realm to provide, guidance. And that came to the fore really with the COVID-19 response. We had three different elements that the Governor's Accelerate SC Task Force, where we provided alternative care sites and AIA re-occupancy tool resources, and as well the Accelerate ED Task Force recommending the process for reopening the schools. And additionally, we provided recommendations to the Public Education Committee for a comprehensive school reopening plan. I think it was really a good way for us to explore, again, the ways that we as architects can help bring our experience, knowledge to bear. Not necessarily the avenue that we all saw, but it was what we were able to pull together. And then probably, adjacent to that, one of our other strategic goals that we did not lose sight of was the South Carolina Energy Efficiency Roadmap. So we had the Efficient Buildings Working Group, and which led to the recommendation to the 2018 IECC. That will be obviously a future goal. There's a lot on our plate currently, but we are still moving for introduction for that in the new session. That's my small bit. Now I have the honor to introduce Ted Riley and Hobart Trotter to take us further through their report.
Thanks, sir. Ted, you want to start?
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that report. And yeah, it was very impactful in talking with the Governor's office, with the Accelerate SC, Accelerate ED, all the AIA tools for reopening that you guys provided. I got great feedback from staff, from the Governor's office and Department of Education, and really appreciated that. And they used those tools in their preparation, is my understanding. So thank you for that advocacy, and that helped us in our realm. Well, as we all have said, it's been a weird year with the pandemic, and we started strong in January, as Jonathan had mentioned, and Adrian attended quite a few events, which you guys made contributions to targeted key members related to legislation of interest to your industry. Particularly the caucus events, which are very important to attend. And it's a lot of face time and a lot of members, and we can really advocate for AIA in that environment. So we appreciate that support, and that's important to the cause. I want to mention that. First, we'll start with the two bills listed there. I'm sure you're familiar with the Building Codes bill. We've talked about it for 2 years. Adrian has been front and center in the coalition trying to work with the Home Builders Association on that legislation. They reached a compromise in the end, and we thought it was going to move forward. And then the home builders reneged really on the compromise, and to our benefit, they angered the chairman, Tom Alexander of the committee, who was their lead sponsor, to the point where he just pulled the bill off the subcommittee agenda and it died. So they'll have to start that all over. This is the second year of a 2-year session we just finished, so everything will start anew in January. The second bill that we were monitoring and we're hoping that they, being election year, I didn't think they would get to it, and they did not have a subcommittee hearing on, is H 4532, dealing with sales tax exemptions. This was a big reform package looking at all taxes in South Carolina. It was introduced May 2nd, 2019 as part of the House Tax Policy Review Committee's tax reform package. And they're trying to modernize. Their tagline was broader, fair, and flatter tax policy. But the key point, and it would reduce the current state sales tax from 6% to 3%. In doing that, they would eliminate, which we do exempt more things from sales tax than we tax. And so they were looking at eliminating most of the exemptions and including some new ones and reducing the tax from 6% to 3%. And one of those was architectural services would have been taxed or included in the definition of services and could potentially be taxed. So we were poised and ready to fight that if it came up. But what they'll have to do is reintroduce that bill. I do expect, I don't know about this bill because they didn't get they upset so many people that they were deciding to come back with a tax on that it didn't have much excitement, at least during the election year. So it may be reintroduced after this year, in which both the House and Senate, all of them are up for re-election this year. And because of COVID, we started in January, moving forward, mid-March, COVID hit and everything was shut down. The General Assembly did come back mid-September for a 2-week session. The House had passed a budget that was residing in the Senate when everything shut down. The Senate never got to pass their version of the budget. So they came back mid-September and worked the calendar. And these are some bills of interest we thought should be mentioned, and I can get you more information if you need them, or Adrian can, as we move forward. But S-259, the South Carolina Resiliency Revolving Act, passed literally on the last day of session. This bill establishes the new South Carolina Office of Resiliency to develop, implement, and maintain a statewide resiliency plan to coordinate statewide resiliency and disaster recovery efforts. So it creates this new office. The House, actually, the chairman of Ways and Means was very supportive and put $25 million in the House version of the budget, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which, because of COVID, disappeared. So there is no funding for this bill. They'll have to come up with funding in the next budget year, but there seems to be enough support from the governor on down to funding this. The governor will appoint a resiliency officer after the new year, and then the Senate will have to confirm that new director or new officer, as they call him. And we've talked with Adrian, and there is going to be an advisory committee, and we want to make sure AIA has representation, and that's one of our to-dos, is to make sure you guys are included and involved in that. And I looked at, in review of the bill, it does mention the development and implementation of a strategic statewide resiliency and risk reduction plan. In one section, it says, including alterations to state building codes and land use management. So I think that's something we'll have to continue to watch closely as we move forward. But we'll work to try to be involved with that important committee. S-217, the flood mitigation bill, we also worked on that. really all it's doing is expanding the use of the local hospitality tax. It allows the hospitality tax to be used for flooding, drainage, and drainage products in tourism-related areas. So you can argue, but it expands that use and allows cities to bond that funding also. So, for instance, at one point, the city of Greenville said there was up to $11 million that frees up for them to use for those types of projects. So they were very supportive, and the municipalities were very supportive of that. I thought that may be of interest to you guys too. H4431, the business license tax reform bill. It really was simply, they've been working on this with the business industry and the municipal association and others to simplify and modernize and standardize. It's a very cumbersome process. Any of you that know and have to work in more than one municipality or one county, you have to fill out a form for a business license tax to work in that area, and it's very cumbersome. The goal of this is to standardize it, and I think it will, and everybody will be pleased with the way this rolls out. Have a one-stop shop type way to fill out a form, and anyway, it should be much easier for everybody. If you have any questions after review of that or about the business license tax reform, we'd be glad to answer those for you. S207 also passed the last day of session. That bill with its 4% property tax assessment ratio for seniors, South Carolinians residing in assisted living, affordable housing, and the two affordable housing property tax exemptions, one we worked on allows for-profit developers to receive the same property tax exemption as nonprofit entities currently enjoy. All the housing directors from around the state supported this. What they're trying to do is provide an incentive to more developers to participate. They have very tight margins, so they're trying to find ways for the for-profit entities, not just not-for-profit entities, to participate in affordable housing projects and get more of that going on. And there was a second affordable housing amendment offered and amended to that passed. It provides an additional tool to allow private developers to build affordable housing. This amendment will allow tax increment financing revenue, or TIFs as we call them, to be used to help construct private affordable housing. So it's really two more tools in the toolbox for affordable housing that people across the state that are in that arena are excited about. And I thought y'all may want to know about that, and hopefully we'll see more projects in the near future in South Carolina. H3780, growing rural economies with access to technology. Once again, a pretty comprehensive bill that had been around for 2 years, dealing with broadband. It helps facilitate the deployment of broadband to underserved areas and establishes the Growing Rural Economies and Access to Technology Fund. Property owned by local governments may be leased, and entities can coordinate efforts as statewide broadband efforts continue. With COVID, it has opened the door to seeing, particularly in the poor rural areas, from education to healthcare, and the lack of access and the need for broadband is the number one issue, one of the number one issues that you'll see going forward, I think, next year, for more funding to try to continue to expand that across the state for all citizens. H4262, the South Carolina Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act, also had been around for 2 years. Really, the small cell or the 5G technology, the pushback was municipalities saw this as a preemption bill, passing a statewide bill that doesn't allow them to introduce ordinances that are more strict than what this bill would allow. But it was compromised, or they all worked together and came up with a compromise, and municipalities pretty much agreed to the compromise. But their biggest fear was really the aesthetics and, having some control over where the boxes would be put. It is in the historic district, how you'll have a box that looks like a refrigerator hanging from poles or something. Anyway, so I think it's all worked out, and that should be okay, but I thought it'd be of interest to you guys also. The CARES Act funding, let's see, here we go. CARES Act funding authorization. This was phase 2 funding, about $650 million. And this is how it was allocated. Just as interest to you guys, we're close to $1 billion we put into the Department of Employment Workforce, offsetting unexpected losses to the Unemployment Trust Fund and avoid businesses incurring unemployment insurance rate increases. The Department of Education they've received in the first phase quite a bit of funding, and they got to keep what was left over from phase 1 to repurpose those funds. And that's what they plan on doing. A lot of it's, you heard Molly Spearman, I think, was in Irmo promoting the mask and plexiglass and everything that they were. I think it was a $45 million investment from the state out there on that. What's next? All right, the state budget, as we said, the House passed a budget. At that time, the projections were showing close to a $2 billion surplus in South Carolina. And then COVID hit, and that $2 billion was greatly reduced. Oh. The latest projections showed, for the Senate, when they came back in September, the Senate passed their version of the budget, and the projections at that time were about $750 million non-recurring dollars and about $85 million in recurring dollars was the current projection. So it went from $2 billion to that in a short time, as we saw what COVID has done to the state. But the good news is we still show a surplus, and the House decided not to accept the Senate version of the budget, and what they're working from is a continuing resolution. So last year's budget, the recurring dollars from that, every agency is funded at that same level, and they will, when they come back in January, the House said we may look at a supplemental bill. We'll see what the projections are. If they hold and we have $750 or $800 million available, then we may do a supplemental bill doing some of what the Senate passed in their version, but they are risk averse and nervous about and being very conservative and saying, let's see how this plays out. Does the economy rebound? Are we going to have this projection in January? So we'll see where we are late December when the BEA reports, and we'll know more then. We talked, and Adrian and I talked about a possible bond bill, and it's in talking to Senate Finance staff and House Ways and Means folks, because we're in a pandemic, they don't see politically that it's time to borrow. And as one of the staffers told me, he said we have close to $1 billion in surplus now, so that's kind of a built-in bond bill. As we have discussed, at least with Adrian, in the capital reserve bill that passed the House when we had a $2 billion surplus, did have about $162 million used for capital projects, higher ed being a big part of that. All that went away, and we don't have that funding for this fiscal year. But saying that, if there's $1 billion available to spend in new dollars in 2021, we'll see there. But the point they made was 2022 may be more of a time to look at a bond bill. It is being discussed among leadership, but they didn't think politically, once again, borrowing in a pandemic would be something that they would be looking to do in 2021. So we'll have to look at 2022. But as Hobart and I were discussing, we think it'd be smart to come up with good talking points work with Adrian and you guys to come up with good talking points to promote a bond bill. I've talked to folks that represent MUSC, has a lot of people on the ground, very powerful board. They're very supportive of a bond bill, of course. All the higher ed folks are. The Department of Administration works for the governor. They're desperately needing to upgrade state buildings, as we've discussed, and you guys know. And they would be supportive also. So we think if we could come up with a good talking points, we can start promoting that during the 2021 session and hopefully push for 2022 for a bond bill. They've paid off all the debt and have plenty of room. I mean, they could borrow $1 billion now and it wouldn't cost the state any more on interest because we have all that available capacity. We finished a 2-year session that we've just talked about, so we will begin January with a new 2-year session. So it's a 2-year window. A lot of times they push bills or introduce bills that may have more controversy in order to have a 2-year window to pass a bill. So we will be looking out for pre-filed bills in December timeframe there.
There should be a ton of bills too. I mean, all the bills that did not move this year will be on the list. They'll be at the top of the heap for the most part. So people will be taking all those and pre-filing them again. So if we've got anything we want to do, we need to get it in fairly, early somewhere so we can make sure we at least got some standing. And it should be, and we don't know exactly how we're going to proceed yet either. So if they're going to let us back in or keep us out or let us interact, or we don't know what's going to happen yet with that.
That's a good point. In there you can see some of the targeted, we work with you guys to figure out who and to whom it's in your best interest to support. This was key members that we did support for this, and they're all up for re-election this year. And particularly the caucuses, I think, gives us the most face time with the most members. So I think that was money well spent. And Adrian was great to suffer with us and attend these events, and usually in the evenings or breakfasts or whatever across the board when we were in normal phase before the shutdown. I appreciate you doing that. That's important to the cause, Adrian. With that, we're glad to answer any questions. I know I talked fast. I was trying to get it all in. But we at Riley Pope and Laney really appreciate it and are honored to represent your interest before the General Assembly, the executive branch, and state agencies. And I do see some questions or questions here. Oh, comments. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted and Hobart. We appreciate it. And just a note, please give to ARCAPAC. That's what helps us get into these places and make inroads to help Ted and Hobart do their job. So just keep that in mind as your membership renews and in the future as well. It's an important part of what we do, and we can't do that without the members' help either. So just a reminder.
They know who you are now, so that's good.
That's right. That's good.
That's a good thing.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We will turn things over to Ben Udawetha, and he's going to chat with us a little bit about what the Equity Committee's been doing. Ben?
Thank you, Meg. As you already heard from previous comments, and I'm sure direct personal experience, this has been a year of some unprecedented events, and like the development of the pandemic, isolation, working from home, and mass unemployment, and some not so unprecedented, but unfortunately familiar events regarding social and racial injustice. Events, that were enhanced early this year by the death of George Floyd, events that are hard to ignore. So these events made us decide as a committee to align our efforts directly with the AIA board statement on systemic racial injustice. And we look for guidance also from NOMA's public statement regarding racial injustice. So seek knowledge this year really became the Equity Committee's guiding motto this year. we feel that we need to understand the years, almost 400 years of history that have brought us to this juncture in the growth of our country today. And in order to understand how our profession can be a vehicle for change. So the Equity Committee was created to promote and support equity and inclusion as a path to diverse profession of architecture. And in the spirit of adapting and how to better serve our membership, the committee decided to become a vehicle for that dispersion of knowledge to promote and support equity. And because many of us are still working from home and highly dependent on online platforms to connect, learn and work, we decided that first we had to establish a presence in our AIA social media platform, AIA South Carolina social media platforms. And because up to this point, the committee had not necessarily used social media to communicate. So with great help from the communications committee, we announced a social media takeover back in July. And we asked then and we ask now for your stories. The stories of professionals and projects that demonstrate equitable committee impact. It is our hope that, by simply sharing these stories of people and projects making change, we can all feel compelled to emulate and work towards the same equitable goals. We also decided that through social media, we wanted to amplify the message of organizations that are already working towards change. NOMA and its pipeline programs and conference events, Hip Hop Architecture and its middle school age programs of teaching architecture through music, Beyond the Bill and its promotion of the diverse designers, and the many virtual seminars that have become available through AIA, and large firm roundtable events that, due to the pandemics, were virtual and have become really the vehicle for acquiring knowledge at the moment. We also want to promote the work of organizations that are already focused on designing spaces for racial, social, and cultural justice. Groups like Collocate and Open Architecture Collaborative. So, but we are also trying to keep, of course, because this is South Carolina, we're trying to identify these organizations that are making this kind of change as well in our state. Organizations kind of like Enough Pie in Charleston. So we're keeping an eye on some of these other organizations that we can support and promote. This year, we also, with of course, we created we started having conversations in our newly established AIA South Carolina forum. Even though it's still in its infancy, I think the forum can become a great vehicle for conversation and exchange of ideas across the state, not only about equity, but current issues in our profession in a more localized level and closer to home. I would encourage you all to visit and engage in conversations. We have also began conversations with Clemson University and its newly appointed School of Architecture Director, Jim Stevens, which you will hear from in a few minutes. We're fortunate to know that we have an advocate in him regarding issues of equity and social justice and looking forward to potential future partnerships. Again, with the help of the Communications Committee, we are also want to build content that resides in new and upcoming landing pages in the AIA South Carolina webpage for our various committees, including equity. We want to establish a path for direct knowledge through our AIA South Carolina website, information at your fingertips, with links regarding racism, firm culture, and opportunities to take action. We know and understand that we're reaching online information exhaustion, but as you know, this has been, for the most part, the only way to reach out and disseminate information. It is our hope that when things come back to normal, and hopefully an in-person collaboration, meetings, teachings, exploring are available again, we can rely less on our electronic media and more on making meaningful connections that foster change. The breadth of opportunities is large and overwhelming at times, but it just takes one project, one mentor, one success story, and one connection to foster change. So I invite you to join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. We're going to turn it over to Hunter McKenzie, who is going to talk with us a little bit about our virtual Aspire event as well as the upcoming Aspire. Hunter?
That's right. Thank you so much. Well, I will be brief, but yeah, so Aspire had to pivot as well as everything else this year, and we made the decision early in the spring that with foresight, we'd probably have to pivot to a virtual conference. So as you know, we're in year 2 of a 3-year commitment to Asheville. And so going virtual was a difficult decision, but it turned out to be a great one. We had the opportunity to bring on some partners, brought on AIA Tennessee, who was a great partner for us. And late in the game, we were able to send out invites to the membership of AIA Alabama and Mississippi as well. So all told, we had 550 attendees join the conference at some point from a total of 23 states. So we think that that's a great success. We're able to share what the South Atlantic region has to offer across the country. So we're very excited about that. We had a great lineup of keynotes and great chat and more dedicated topical speakers as well. And that's what South Carolina's task was for planning Aspire. And I want to give a shout out, of course, to Tracy and Adrian for helping so much with that. But Ben Ward chaired our CE committee, and he put together a great team that did a lot of good work. It involved a lot more responsibility and involvement than they probably originally thought. But they curated and chose some wonderful speakers from dozens of options, got us a great speakers list, and had to kind of play moderator and be a lot more involved with those speakers throughout the conference. And each one of them did a fantastic job. We got nothing but positive feedback from conference attendees. So thank you guys. Real quick, on his committee, Tom Savory, Matt Barnett, Ganesh Nayak, Aaron Bowman, Gene Bell, Kelsey Osman, and Michael Murdoch. A great team effort, but thank you guys. Justin Patterson also helped put together a great EP track. We had a number of emerging professionals and students that were able to join as well, and really have heard nothing but positive feedback. We are excited to hopefully join together back in person in Asheville next year. However, as good as a virtual conference can go, it doesn't beat seeing each other face to face. So that is planned right now for September 12th through 14th in Asheville. So Lord willing, we will return to some normalcy by then and be able to meet face to face. So pencil that in on your calendar, and we look forward to seeing you next year in Asheville.
Thanks, Hunter. All right, we are going to introduce Jim Stevens. He is the Director of the School of Architecture for Clemson University. So Jim, I will turn that over to you.
Well, thank you, Meg. As Meg was saying, I am Jim Stevens, recently appointed as the new Director of the School of Architecture. It's just great for me because I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and have been the last 12 years in the Detroit area in Michigan. So in a lot of ways, coming to Clemson for me is coming home. So it's great to be back in the Carolinas and in the region, and I'm really enjoying the position thus far. As many of you know, I have really the privilege of taking over from Kate Swinson, who was a great director, and was fortunate enough to overlap with her for 1 month in June, which was my first month on the job. And fortunate for everyone else that I have her on speed dial, and she really has served as a great mentor for me in starting here at the program. There are a number of things that are happening at Clemson that I think are important to update the profession on. We obviously we're having probably the most unusual fall semester that maybe academia has seen in probably 100 years. And we are primarily working virtual, but we do have some blended studios, some on-campus work going on. Preliminary, I guess, reports, so to speak, coming back from students and faculty is that it's going as well as we expected, and in some cases it's going exceptionally well. However, as good as some of the work that's coming out of it, and even us, as many of you are, learning how to do kind of online critiques and sketch together through a tablet online, etc., we are all missing being in Lee Hall. And I'm sure most of you have either worked as a student in Lee Hall or or visited, and it's a beautiful building and a wonderful place to be and to be around your colleagues. And of course, the students and the faculty miss that. So we're all kind of looking forward to the moment that we can get back on campus. But in the meantime, I think the faculty have done a wonderful job of ensuring that the students are meeting their learning objectives, they're progressing in their studies, so that we can get back and we don't lose time. I think from my perspective as a new director, as you can imagine, all of the plans that I had in March when I signed my contract, quite literally the day or two before the world turned upside down, many of those aspirations have been either put on hold or had to be altered. But I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I think we are uniquely positioned as a profession in architecture to deal with times like these. We're very good at meeting our objectives through new remixings of different types of limits that are placed on us. It's basically the way our minds work. So I kind of took the same approach with the directorship. And three things that are very important to me as I move forward as the director are diversity and inclusion, looking at ecology very carefully, and technology. So inclusion, ecology, and technology is where I spend a lot of my time talking to the faculty when we're looking at curriculum, when I'm meeting with student groups. And I think all three of those things really kind of are an overlay and embedded in everything we do, not only in the academy, but in practice. And so I'll be, you'll probably be hearing a lot more on that as we go forward. As Ben mentioned earlier, we hope to collaborate with AIA South Carolina on some type of lecture or panel discussion at some point in the winter around diversity and inclusion, and really looking at what I would call the business side of that and how the market share of what we do, I believe, will be impacted by our ability to be able to kind of widen the entry point for architects to come into the profession. So, but it's a great place to be, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to elections. So I will close the floor for any nominations at this point. And first, I'd like to recognize a few of the retiring board members this year. Wendy Bergman, who is Midlands Director, Danielle DeLorme, who's Low Country Director, and Ben Udaweka, who's Upstate Director. Thank you guys for your service. And I will hand it over, oh, I'm sorry. I missed Dan and Benjamin. Dan Schaefer, who you heard from before a little bit, our immediate past president. He will finally be done with his service, but he's moving on to the foundation now, so he's not quite done. And then Benjamin Ward, rolling off as Secretary Treasurer, is on the slate today to come back in as President-elect. So at that point, now I'll turn it over to Gene Bell.
Thanks, Meg. I would like to introduce our slates of candidates for this year. I'm excited about the level of talent, expertise, and dedication to the Institute represented in this year's slate. First, a candidate for Vice President, President-elect, Benjamin Ward, AIA. Ben is an architect at McMillan Pasden Smith and has an undergraduate degree from Clemson University and graduate degree from North Carolina State. He serves as AIA South Carolina Secretary Treasurer and Continuing Education Chair for the just passed SAR Aspire Conference. He also serves on the AIA South Carolina Resilience Committee. He was the 2016-17 South Atlantic Young Architect Regional Director and the 2019 recipient of the AIA Young Architects Award. The candidate for Secretary Treasurer is Aaron Bowman, AIA. Aaron is a project architect at Leolio Architecture in Charleston. He previously served on the board of directors and executive committees on both AIA Greenville and AIA Charleston, and served as a Low Country Regional Director on the AIA South Carolina board. Aaron was a founding chair of the AIA South Carolina Resilience Committee and the Resilience by Design Conference. In 2010, he was recognized by AIA South Carolina with the Intern Architect of the Year Award, and he received the AIA Young Architect Award this year. The candidate for Midlands Director is Ashley Scott St. John, AIA. Ashley is from Columbia and is the owner of One by One Design. She received her Bachelor of Arts from Clemson University and a Master of Architecture from Georgia Institute of Technology. She has been a member and volunteer with AIA Columbia since beginning her career as a summer intern, most notably serving as president in 2011. In addition to her service with AIA, Ashley has also served as a board member and numerous leadership positions with the Clemson Architectural Foundation. Ashley was a 2019 recipient of the AIA Young Architect Award. The candidate for Low Country Director is Evan Goodwin, AIA. Evan grew up in Greenville and is currently at Pierce Scott Architects in Bluffton. Evan has an undergraduate degree from Clemson University and a master's in architecture from the University of Oregon with an advanced study in sustainable practices in housing. Evan has previously served in multiple roles for the AIA Hilton Head Island chapter, most recently as president for the past 2 years. He has also served on the AIA South Carolina Resilience Committee since 2017, where he is currently serving as a 2020 chair. And finally, the upstate director candidate is Jameson Hupp, AIA. Jameson is the principal of Fathom Firm, a design and consulting practice he founded in 2019. Jameson holds a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the University of Tennessee. He currently serves as AIA Greenville's president and has served in multiple AIA Greenville Executive Committee roles since 2013, including design director of the 2015 AIA Greenville Design Awards. Additionally, Jameson serves as a member of the AIA AGC Carolinas Joint Committee and has previously volunteered and served in various committee positions with the USGBC. That completes our slate. I see that there are no nominations from the floor. Do I hear a motion to elect the slate by acclamation?
I'll go ahead and make that motion. Seeing as there are no candidates from the floor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the slate of candidates as presented by acclamation.
And a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Jonathan. Please indicate your approval of the slate on the pop-up voting window. Jeopardy theme song.
We need music, don't we?
Something.
Don't sing, Gene.
The slate has been approved.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian. Gene, does that wrap you up?
That's all I have.
Awesome. All right. So we have new architects in South Carolina, and today we would like to recognize those folks. Since we weren't able this year to be in person with a luncheon to congratulate them on their achievements, we at least can read that today and hopefully add them and do this in person next year. So I'd like to start Chelsea Marie Anderson, AIA, Zachary David Carmen, AIA, Corinne Alyssa Court, Mason Daniel Couvillon, AIA, Justin Fate, Angela Marie Farragon, AIA, Sarah Siegler Lamunian, AIA, Christopher Libertos, Tracy Lynn McGee, AIA, Mitchell Paul Newbold, AIA, Kunal T. Patel, AIA, Erica Renee Radford, AIA, Ross Loyal Ritchie, AIA, Jane Phi Shen, Casey Lynn Smithling, Jean-Pierre Wersinger, AIA, Douglas Burton White, AIA, Rebecca Mercer Wilson, AIA, Anthony Peter Wohlers, AIA, Jenna Michelle Wolf, and Kyle Christian Woodstruck. Congratulations to all of you, and welcome to the profession. Yay, it's awesome. Congratulations. All right. So moving on, we're going to do AIA South Carolina Member Awards. These awards are nominated from AIA South Carolina members and voted on by the board. So today, it's my honor to announce the recipients of this, and I'm going to read this, so I apologize because it's a lot, but here we go. But it's good. So we're going to start with the Patron Award today. The Patron Award winner is a well-respected community leader who has coached, influenced, and impacted the work and decisions of a multitude of planners, architects, landscape architects, and government leaders in the greater Charleston area for almost 30 years. He is widely known for his role in the development of Daniel Island in Charleston and has applied the same visionary principles to the more recent developments of Point Hope on the Cainhoy Peninsula in Charleston and Carnes Crossroads in Goose Creek. In 1991, he and a team of developers, planners, and architects worked with the city of Charleston to undertake the development of 4,000 acres of land long owned by the Harry Frank Guggenheim Foundation. The result was a visionary master plan, the nationally recognized award-winning Daniel Island, which has since become a national model for smart growth. It was through his leadership that the original vision was safeguarded and nurtured. Every decision on infrastructure, neighborhood planning, cultural amenities, and architecture has had to pass his critical eye. While the master plan has evolved over the last 3 decades, the vision has never wavered. The result is a true and lasting sense of place that exists within the historical context of the greater region. As Daniel Island has matured, he has turned his attention to the development of subsequent communities and leveraged his experience to create unique neighborhoods specific to their place, but with a commonality of attention to the natural landscape, a variety of housing types in order to create diverse and inclusive neighborhoods, sustainability, architectural excellence, and a dynamic public realm that not only serves the residents, but also the public at large. Daniel Island stands as a testament to his vision, insight, and insistence for quality development and architecture. His recognition that development is not just about buildings and roads, but also about honoring the surrounding environment, being good stewards of natural resources, drawing people together in community, and bettering a region's quality of life has made and will continue to make the Lowcountry a better place. The architects, landscape architects, and planners that he has collaborated with over 30 years are better because of that experience. Thank you to Charles Muldrow, AIA of SMHA Inc., Rush Dixon, AIA of Rush Dixon Architects, and Nathan Shute, AIA of McMillan Pasden Smith Architecture for the nomination. And congratulations to Matt Sloan, President of DI Development Company, on the 2020 AIA South Carolina Patron Award. I think he's with us today, isn't he, Adrian? So Matt will receive his certificate via mail, correct?
Yes. And Matt, I've unmuted you.
Is he with us? Matt, are you with us? Okay. We'll go on, Adrian.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, I just want to say
Thank you
for this honor. That's the nicest intro I've ever experienced in my life. I'm blushing, actually.
Well, you can thank your nominees for a wonderful letter of recommendation.
Well, I know they're great, and I enjoy working with all of them, and we're working on really neat projects right now. Actually, Rush is designing my house as we speak, so it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'll sign off. Bye.
All right, bye. All right, moving on to the next one. It'll be the Associate Award. The Associate Award winner began her career at LS3P in the Columbia office a year after graduating from Clemson's School of Architecture undergraduate program. It became quickly apparent she possessed the skills and character to become a real influencer in the field of architecture. After receiving her master's in architecture and urban planning from UNCC, she returned to work with LS3P. As an emerging professional, she excels above many others with her years of experience in technical skills, communication and collaboration, and quality of work with an exceptional work ethic and positive attitude. Though what the winner does as part of her job is impressive, what is even more notable is what she does above and beyond her work life. She began her outreach and involvement at Clemson and UNCC in various organizations such as AIASC and NOMA, and continues to stay committed through participation in various committees to advance inclusion and equity in our profession. Most importantly, she is committed to growing the next generation of architects through example and mentorship in organizations such as the ACE Mentor Program of the Midlands and the AIA Greater Columbia Kids in Architecture Program. She has also been recognized in the community for her outstanding qualities, such as one of the 10 inaugural recipients of the Mayor's Talented 10th Dubois Fellowship and a finalist in Columbia Metropolitan's Magazine's 2020-2021 Columbia Young Professional Award. Thank you to past AIA South Carolina President Mary Beth Branham, AIA, for the nomination, and congratulations to Bria Wigfall, Associate AIA, on the 2020 AIA Associate Award. And I'm not sure Bria's with us today, so there she is though. Is Mary Beth with us to?
I am, Meg. Thank y'all so much. I could not be prouder of Bria. I believe she is online, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we are so proud of all the great work that Bria has done in her career, her early part of her career, and also for the community. And it'll just be very exciting to see what Bria will be able to do as she becomes a wonderful registered architect very soon. So thank you all for your support. And she's very grateful if for some reason we can't get her to speak, but she is so grateful. Well, I will say that on her behalf.
Thank you, Mary Beth. All right. So there's a lot of things that go on at the board level and in leadership that take a little extra. And so there's a couple people that I wanted to recognize today with presidential citations. And the first is Dan Schaefer, our immediate past president. Dan does a lot behind the scenes and never complains and never says he won't take on something. He's always so willing and so gracious about everything. So Dan, I want to thank you for your continued support with the design awards, with the foundation, and supporting me as well as going through the COVID year. So thank you for that. And again, we will have a certificate for you in the mail. Yay, Dan. Golf clap, right?
Thank you very much. No, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve. So thank you for recognizing, and just look forward to continued collaboration, because it sounds like I'm not going too far away to the foundation board. So
not too far. We won't let you
continuing to work together.
Well, thank you. Our second presidential citation is for Jane Frederick, FAIA, our 2020 AIA President, obviously for her service to the Institute. She has served AIA in lots of different capacities, and I couldn't think of anyone finer to run the Institute this year. And we are so proud of her as a South Carolinian being there and representing the nation as president this year. So thank you, Jane. I think she's on with us. Jane, are you there?
Now, can you hear me? I was double muted.
Yeah, there you go.
Congratulations. It seems by this time of the year, I'd figure out how to mute and unmute, right? Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be recognized by my home state. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
And it is a pleasure to serve.
And I am actually gonna, at this point, hand it over to Jane to talk about our College of Fellows and Young Architect Award and give us a AIA update from Washington.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here with you today. And I'd like to start by recognizing David Moore, FAIA, and Wayne Rogers, FAIA, who have recently achieved fellowship, AIA's highest member honor. Through their exceptional work and contributions to architecture and society, AIA Fellows exemplify architectural excellence. Congratulations to David and Wayne, and I look forward to putting your fellowship medal around your neck in Philadelphia next summer and celebrating in person. So congratulations. I also want to recognize Aaron Bowman, AIA, for receiving the Young Architect Award of 2020. He is one of 22 recipients in the country. Congratulations, Aaron. Great job. Yay. Back in December, which seemed like a lifetime ago, I asked rhetorically, what will happen to us in this next year? And the short answer is a lot. I also challenged us to make 2020 the year that architects assert our leadership, and we have. For the last several months, architects have been at the forefront of helping their communities respond to the COVID-19 public health crisis. From adapting buildings into health facilities to providing guidance for safely reopening where we live, work, and relax. The commitment and ability of architects to help society meet big challenges has been made clear, not through words, but by deeds that have touched millions of lives. At that same time, AIA, our members, along with the rest of the nation, have engaged as never before to address systemic racial and gender injustice. Colleagues within our membership, CASE, NOMA, and other essential voices are generously sharing their insights and creating an online dialogue to inform steps for translating our ideals into meaningful progress. To that end, AIA will participate in the NAACP 2020 Diversity and Opportunity Report Card for the Sustainable Building Sector. It's slated for release in 2021. The audit will evaluate equitable practices within the AIA, including staffing, programs and services, procurement, and governance. We're also conducting a thorough review of our honors and award programs to identify potential implicit and explicit biases. The review will inform the development of countermeasures meant to increase the diversity of honor and award recipients. We're developing a series of guided discussions organized for chapters that are developed through the Guides for Equitable Practices. And of course, we continue to engage in the climate crisis fight. Since our members overwhelmingly approved a resolution last year making climate action our top priority, we've been working to turn policy into action, focusing every aspect of our operations toward reducing carbon in the built environment. The new climate action plan we developed is designed to set out actionable, measurable steps toward achieving net zero emissions in the building sector by 2030. Through the framework of design excellence, formerly known as the COAT Top 10, we're ensuring sustainability goals are actionable. And another critical program is AIA's 2030 commitment. 2019 was our best year yet. Reporting firms recorded 3.3 billion gross square feet across more than 100 countries. That's nearly the size of New Mexico. And they achieved a 49% reduction in predicted energy use intensity, the greatest reduction in the program history. And I want to challenge all of the firms here in South Carolina, if you're not participating, you can, because we have the example of a large firm, LS3P, that's making great progress. And my firm, we met the goal for this year, which was a 70% reduction. And if you don't know, my firm is just 5 people. So small firms and big firms can meet the 2030 commitment. So I challenge all of you to get into the game. The 2030 commitment also recognizes that operational carbon is just one piece of the climate action puzzle. To meet international targets, it's critical to consider embodied carbon, meaning all the carbon emitted during the manufacturing and transport transport of materials, and during building construction. That's why we're revamping the design data exchange to enable firms to track whole building embodied carbon beginning this month. Our Blueprint for Better campaign 2020 version launches this Friday, and it's all about climate action. So be sure to look at AIA Architect and sign up for the Blueprint for Better campaign. It's really powerful. I've seen some previews. As we look ahead, I look forward to working with you to advance our broad effort to ensure that architects are valued as indispensable resources in the climate crisis fight and a credible and trusted voice on the issues of racial injustice. Ultimately, we all have work to do to find real-world solutions that are at the intersection of these two primary focuses of the AIA. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you for all your hard work this year. And also congratulations to Erin and the new fellows as well. So we appreciate all of that. So I will open it up for any old or new business. I'm not, give you guys just a second if anybody has anything to pop in the question and answer. And I'm not seeing anything. So I want to thank everybody for their patience with the format today. I know it's new and different, and for us at least, it's not so new and different for most people now, but it is for us in this situation. So thank you for your patience and participating in the polls and kind of working all that through us. And also, it's been a privilege to serve you as your president this year. Sorry we didn't get to see each other face to face more often, but we did the best we could. So I hope we served you guys well, and I will sign off and close the meeting. Thank you.